Liam Fox this morning on the television now saying they could actually pull this final vote if they think they're going to lose. Either way, what can't be avoided is a big European summit taking place in Brussels this Thursday. And the debate this morning, well, Ollie Robbins let it slip in that bar, didn't he, late at night, that what's going to happen is MPs are going to be put up against the wall and told it's my deal or it's a long extension and possibly no Brexit at all. This from the Prime Minister, who 108 times in public has told us we are leaving on March the 29th. So a lot to look forward to, but we must just for a moment think about the week that's just gone, because it's been one of the most extraordinary weeks ever, I think, in the British Parliament. And helping me through this week, I'm very pleased to be joined by Michael Portillo, journalist, broadcaster, star of this week, and of course former MP and Cabinet Minister. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Thank you for having me on.
Not at all. I'm looking this morning for somebody with experience of political crises, somebody who's seen remarkable events in Parliament, and you sat there through some amazing days. But when you look back at the week that's just happened, is there anything that can really compare with it?
Nothing in my political career compares with what happened last week or in the last few weeks. I suppose possibly you'd go to the Second World War, you'd go to some of those extraordinary debates that led to the resignation of Neville Chamberlain and the rise of Winston Churchill. Perhaps you'd have to go back to that for similar levels of drama. These days I'm much more of a historian than I am an active politician. I'm not in any way an active politician. And I have found these weeks deeply interesting historically. So I think the comparisons would be with World War II. I think even more to the point is whether this sets precedents. I mean, is it to be the case now that you can have a three-line whip, that members of the cabinet will disobey the three-line whip and remain members of the government? Is it to be the case in future that the chief whip asks a cabinet minister to resign and the cabinet minister refuses? Is it to be the case in future that a Secretary of State speaking on behalf of the government can commend a motion to the House, which means I want you all to vote for it, and then go and vote against it? I mean, this makes absolute nonsense of Parliament.
That was the champagne moment of the week for me. That was Stephen Barclay urging the House to vote for the government motion and then going to vote against it. I mean, quite
When
extraordinary.
you say champagne, I mean, you are famously a patriot, and therefore I'm not sure that we should be drinking champagne. I mean, Parliament is meant to mean something. The House of Commons is meant to mean something. If a minister says to the House of Commons, I commend this motion to the House, and then goes into the other lobby to vote against it, surely this is quite a serious development in our parliamentary democracy. I mean, we know that levels of cynicism and scepticism about our processes have been rising during this whole business. But really, for a person barefacedly to say to the House, I want you to vote for this, and then go and vote against it, I mean, public trust is in tatters.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I mean, the one thing that I feel potentially excited about is I think that Brexit has proved itself to be bigger than the two political parties. And I'm beginning to think, and I know we have the first past the post system, but I'm beginning to think that maybe we're about to see a fragmentation of British politics, an end to the dominance of a two-party system. And I, in some ways, I find that quite an exciting prospect.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, you probably thought that a while ago when you got 4 million votes, but as you say, under the first past the post system, that didn't make any difference. And extraordinarily, at the last general election, the two main parties took over 80% of the votes between them. And this reversed the situation during the previous decades, where the vote from the two main parties had been disintegrating and moving to the SNP and the Liberal Democrats and so on, and of course to UKIP, excuse me. And that process was reversed in the 2017 election. So we'll see what's going to happen. By the way, I don't think many members of the public would celebrate if they believe that the future of British politics to be shaped around Brexit. I would think by now that most people would like this business to come to an end. And it is meant to come to an end on March the 29th. And I know that you've been lobbying governments, well, I'm informed that you've been lobbying governments to see if they will veto giving Britain an extension to Article 50. I rather think that would be to do Britain a favour, that we could resolve this matter within the next 10 days rather than the prospect of it going on for another 2 or another 4 years. So if we were not allowed to postpone Article 50, the only choices we would have would be Mrs May's deal, no deal, or no Brexit. And all of that would have to be resolved in the next 10 days. And if the answer was no Brexit, which I think probably it would be, given the House of Commons that we have, then all the members of Parliament who voted to revoke Article 50 to bring the Brexit process to an end in defiance of the referendum of 2016, all of those names would be on the page and all of those people would be identified. And that would be a return to democratic accountability.
Well, it certainly would be. I mean, what would you do, Michael Portillo? If you were there, still in the House of Commons, facing these choices this week, what would you do?
I'm going to expose myself to ridicule here by saying that last week I probably would have voted for Mrs May's deal because I could see that the alternative is almost certainly, I think, no Brexit. The Remainers are very, very strong in Parliament. No Brexit has been the plan all the way along, and I think they're within a hair's breadth of producing no Brexit.